So, how is everyone? I hope you're all well. A little bit of a different video today as we look at the Idaho 4 case from a little bit more of a serious angle. Now, I'm going to leave you to listen to a guy who has sadly been suffering from complex PTSD for some time. Gives you an insight into what it's like to live with this and how things can escalate. Now, he talks about how he came about it, but what I want to do is say that complex PTSD is not something that exclusively exists within the military. Now, we are a military family. I live right next to a military base, but complex PTSD is something that can manifest and evolve within someone for multiple reasons. It can be domestic violence, it can be seeing something tragic, it can be being involved in something, a car crash, a family tragedy, anything. But I want you to take away what it means to be a sufferer. And then when you've listened to it, and I want you to listen to the whole thing, guys, listen to what he says and how this concludes. And at the end of it, I'm going to come back and we're going to touch on some things to do with the Idaho 4 case, specifically looking at Brent Kohberger, Dylan Mortensen, and Bryan Kohberger, and ask some quite challenging questions. So with that, I'm going to leave you with this.
I just wanted to die. Just wanted the pain to end. The physical pain, the mental pain. Pain that you can't express. Mental pain that you can't talk about and express. Do you know what? That's fucking PTSD. That's PTSD. My name is Craig Harrison. I spent 23 years in the British Army, completing a total of 10 tours in Bosnia, Kosovo, Iraq and Afghanistan. During my time in service, I set the world record for the longest kill in combat, survived being shot on the helmet and suffered a brain injury after being blown up by an IED. I was medical discharged from the army with complex PTSD and I've battled with mental health demons ever since. I live with suicidal thoughts almost every day of my life. This is my story. I had horses when I was younger and I was very interested in horses and I wanted to be a farrier, so I joined the Household Cavalry. Yeah, training was hard, but when I got to the regiment, the army life sort of fitted me down to the ground and they brought snipers into the role and I thought, I'm going to give it a go. And do you know what there? I went down the sniper school with nothing. I didn't have a rifle, didn't have a ghillie suit, didn't have sticks, lobs board or nothing. I just went down there totally blind and I came top student in my course. Basically we're in Iraq in the place called the Maysan Desert, and this desert is vast and we would move around the desert, but every time we used to stop we used to get mortared all the time. As this went on 3 or 4 times we realised that we were getting scouted by a bloke on a motorbike. I put myself forward. I said, look, because I was sergeant at the time, I reckon we should take this guy out. And they left me behind in the sand. When I shot, I aimed at him, but I hit the bike. And then he stood up and I fired again and I hit him here. I felt like I was in trouble. You know, I felt pretty shit. I've just killed someone. My first time. I didn't count them as people, I count them as targets. You know, because if you start having feelings, you're not going to complete your missions on the ground. You had to hit that target. If that target got away, your mission's a failure, isn't it? And he's gone off to do something else and more damage, lay ID somewhere. Yeah, you had to put it to the back of your mind. December the 14th, 4:30. I was on an op and the op had finished. We were coming back and my first vehicle stopped. I stopped as well because as a sergeant you don't lead, you get your junior ranks to lead and you direct from the rear. So I stopped and got out and walked up to him and I said, what's going on? He said, I've got a bad feeling, Craig. He looked at me, he had tears in his eyes. He said, I've got kids at home, Craig, and a wife. I said, yeah, no worries. And I went, you stay there, mate, I'll lead. And I didn't want to go through a village where there's loads of vulnerable points. So I was skirted around the edge of the village and my driver's side hit a 30 kilo anti-tank mine, IED. The steering wheel stopped him from flying out, so damaged all his legs. I got blown out of the vehicle to the left side, and around me were anti-air personnel mines as well, so you had to demine them before they can get to me. And they were shouting at me to stay still, but I was trying to crawl to find where my driver was, so I couldn't see him. The lads got me out, and Chinook came down and sent me back to Bastion. I broke both my arms, had a brain injury, my hips were knackered, and I didn't feel right. And I think that's the day where everything from the tours that I've done in my life, everything that I was bottling up and keeping in little boxes, just shattered, and I couldn't control my feelings, my emotions. 6 weeks at home, and then they took the cast off, made me do 10 press-ups and sent me back out, and I went straight onto the front line snipering again. I was taking a lot of painkillers when they redeployed me and the tour finished, and I just kept just felt emotional all the time and tired, and I kept crying over simple things. And my wife noticed it first. She noticed my isolation, she noticed my irritability, not sleeping at night, and being in a constant daydream, and I daydream about the shit stuff that I've seen, and it cripples you. And then the army noticed it, because when I was going on exercise, I wasn't on exercise. I was in Iraq, Afghan, Bosnia, Kosovo. I was there. I've done 10 tours, you know, I've seen a lot of things, I've done a lot of things. And I got called into the medical officer's office, and they said to me, we're going to send you away for tests. They came back with diagnosed with CPTSD, with chronic PTSD disorder, and that's it. For the drugs, I'm discharged. So 23 years, half hour to get kicked out. Guy's rock bottom. I couldn't get any lower. I got hold of a handgun, and I sat in the kitchen, and Betsy was sat on the back of this settee, and I had this gun, and I put it in my mouth, and I was clicking on there, my fucking head, my fucking forehead. I was putting it in my mouth so much I was gagging on it. Put one round in, I cocked it, and I put it in my mouth, and then Betsy looked at me, and she tilted her head and tilted it the other way, and I stared at her, and I took the gun out and put it down. I said thank you to her, and she came down and jumped in my lap, you know, and I said, I'm so thank you for being there.
Do you still think about suicide now?
Yeah, stopped it there, didn't I? Straight away, yeah. I am so sad. I am so sad. I hide things away all the time. I wear a mask, constantly wearing a mask, but sometimes it slips, and I'm sorry that it slips.
So, it's quite a heartbreaking story. Now, thankfully, this had a happy ending. But it could have been very, very different. And for many, it does. Now, whether that be because the sufferer of PTSD does something to themselves or do it to someone else, this is something that is all too familiar, but doesn't get spoken about enough. So when we look at the Idaho 4 case, some of you may wonder why we have to consider this. So let's start with Dylan Mortensen. So we've got a person in the Idaho 4 case who is the victim. Some people class her as a victim. I class her as a survivor. But what I will say is, when I hear Dylan Mortensen being pinned with PTSD, I'm conflicted. Because at the moment, we don't 100% know what Dylan did see and what she didn't see. And we can only guess and go by what has been made accessible to us. And from what I can see is accessible, I'm conflicted, because I can't consolidate how she would suffer from PTSD, because she either witnessed something so horrendous and tragic that it triggered something, or she didn't see anything. She didn't think anything of the situation, and we therefore have this 8-hour delay. Now, people will argue the frozen shock phase, etc., etc., but still I'm conflicted because there's an 8-hour delay. And the first calls that were made were to friends, not to law enforcement. And it would appear that many people are feeling the same. Like, don't get me wrong, there are supporters and there are people who will feel that she is a victim. And look, at the end of the day, it depends what you're willing to accept that she saw. If she saw nothing and she didn't think anything of it, and let's not forget the tattoos and stuff like that a few days later. And I'm not saying that she couldn't possibly have PTSD. I'm just saying that I struggle to consolidate the facts with that conclusion. So for those of you who are supporting and feel that she does, then that's your prerogative to do so. But I'd like you to let me know down below what you think she saw that triggered it. And if she saw something that was enough to trigger, say, a PTSD response, then why this huge delay? And why no real mention of that within the documentation that has been made public? And if this is the case, then can she be a credible witness? Is it possible that what she is remembering is not accurate? So now we move on to Brent Kohberger. Now, Brent Kohberger was a military veteran, and he was suffering from PTSD. And he had done in a very similar vein than this guy that we've just listened to. So would it be out of the realms of possibility that he could have been weaponized by someone who was able to manipulate him and use him? There are rumours that he had things that he wanted to say. There were posts on his Facebook that would lead you to believe that there was something going on in the background. There was map coordinates being uploaded, etc. Now, we'll never know if they were connected to this. We know that Bryan Kohberger had asked whether someone else had been arrested, but we don't know what that was all about. But what we do know is that Brent Kohberger was a military-trained individual who had the skills and knowledge and a complex situation within himself that would have made him the person who was most likely to do this crime. And let's not forget his final hours, threatening to kill his roommates, resulting in him having to be killed himself. Did Bryan Kohberger know him? Were these guys speaking and discussing? It's very interesting when you listen to the fact that these people in the military or with military training don't see people as people, they see people as targets. And they have to complete that mission. And if they do not finish off a target, then they have failed that mission. Now, was the Idaho 4 situation a mission for someone? But it exists. And finally, we have Bryan Kohberger, and this will be the most controversial of all, because we have to now decide whether Bryan Kohberger had suffered throughout his life, because this is going to be the defence that is used if the defence go down the route of acceptance of what has been done, because they feel they can't get out of it, but they have to explain why. Bryan Kohberger, for what we know of him, he was bullied, he was ridiculed for his weight, his size, to the point where he took narcotics, he went on this weight loss plan and got his weight down, and seemingly was still not accepted by people. And something happened, something went wrong, and they're saying that did something happen that was the straw that broke the camel's back, but he snapped and he went into this crime. Now, when you just listened to what you listened to, now just say that this guy had then gone on to hurt someone else. Who would be the people at fault? Would you be able to look him in the eye and truly say that he is the person to blame, him and only him? Or was he suffering from something that just couldn't be fixed by himself? There isn't the facilities out there to cater for this, and these are situations that they leave to boil over, leave to explode, and then they are dealt with by locking people up. Could Bryan Kohberger have suffered throughout his life to the point where he could not take anymore? To this point where he just exploded? The crime itself seems like a crime of rage. Someone very angry, someone very upset, someone with an issue with at least one person in that house that was enough to trigger this rage. Now again, innocent until proven guilty, but we are looking at the point here that we have got someone who has been he has been arrested, and he is the prime suspect, and there is mounting things up in the background that are making it harder and harder to ignore his involvement, at least. But involvement doesn't mean that he was the only person who was complicit in this crime. Doesn't mean that he was the only person involved. And I wonder whether there is going to be a huge curveball. But, like I say, how much does it take to push someone into doing something like this? How much does someone have to be pushed and tweaked and pulled and ridiculed and hurt before it's too late? How do we stop this? How do we make things better? Let me know down below what you took away from all this. And I'll catch you all in the next one.
What's up, Harsh fam? We just launched our new nonprofit organization, United Search Corps, where we're going to be advocating for the missing and families of the missing as well. And we need your help to spread awareness for our mission and also our fundraiser. There's a lot of equipment and necessary things that we need for this to be possible. So please take a second and share our fundraiser. For more information, please check out our website, unitedsearchcorps.org. Go over to my YouTube channel and check out our announcement video as well. The links will be in the description below. Thank each and every one of you for your time and consideration. Thank you.